Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Sebastian and today I want to talk about podcasting, how to get started from the very beginning and what you need to do before recording your first episode. So exactly 2 years ago, I started my podcast, and what I've seen is that in the last 5 years, podcasting has become huge, right? Just barely we saw that Joe Rogan signed a $100 million contract with Spotify to exclusively publish all of his podcasts on Spotify. And this should tell you kind of where things are going in the future. I definitely see podcasting getting bigger and bigger in the future. And if you thought about starting your own podcast, I thought it'd be really helpful to have a starter guide of what are the things you need to do before you record even your first episode. So starting off, the main thing and probably the most important thing is that you need to figure out your topic. What are the things that you enjoy talking about? What are the things that you would like to communicate to that specific audience, right? And so if you have thought about starting a podcast, it's probably because you talk about one specific subject a lot and you would like to go more into detail to share your thoughts and ideas with other people. And honestly, that's the reason why I started my own podcast. It was mainly because I was going through my journey of figuring out what it is that I wanted to do with my life, figuring out how I could incorporate business with my life. And when I first started, it was literally just like a journal where I would record my thoughts, I would record all the things that I'm learning from everyday, findings, and I would share it with people. And people would actually be interested, which really surprised me because I thought no one would be interested in what I had to say. But at the end of the day, you're able to see how other people are just exactly like you, right? They want to learn from others and they're maybe afraid to do so. And so you can be that person that can really help them see life in a new perspective. And also, if you pick a topic from the beginning, well, everything is going to be based around that. You don't have to be very specific, but I do recommend that you are very specific. And that's only because the more specific you are, the more niche you are, the more specific people are going to come. And I know from a lot of marketing books that I've read is that you need to be able to grow a tribe of 1,000 true fans. So you don't need 1 million people, all you need is 1,000 people that truly love your content and that are willing to consume it wherever you are, whenever you post. Okay, so point number 2 is you need to establish a style. If you watch Joe Rogan, for example, his style is, he has a guest on every show and he's a very laid back guy. He is just kind of having a conversation as if you were at a bar with a friend or grabbing coffee with a friend. It's very laid back and it's very random, right? It doesn't really follow a script, which I personally enjoy a lot. But if you like more established podcasts that have a hard outline, that have a specific point, a specific message that they want to share with other people, then you can do that too. I would say there are 2 or 3 main styles for podcasting. One of them is solo. There are no guests. All you're doing is you're sharing your thoughts and your ideas. You might have guests from time to time, but it's mainly just you. The second option would be to have guests, right? You are the host of your own podcast and you're learning and you're listening to other people that have different perspectives. You ask them questions. So those are the 2 main ones that I would say exist. What I'm doing, for example, is I'm doing a mixture between both. I will talk about specific findings that I have in my personal life whenever I see fit, but most of the times I'm actually interviewing guests on my podcast. And the main reason why I enjoy doing this is because I'm getting new perspectives from other people. And I'm inviting people that have done great things with their lives, that are probably somewhere where I would like to be in the future. And by doing this, all I'm doing is learning a ton and helping them out by marketing their name, marketing their brand. So it really is a win-win situation. Okay, so step number 3 is equipment. And trust me, you will find a ton of blogs and videos talking about what equipment you need to use for your podcast. But all I'm gonna tell you today is you need a phone. That's all you really need. And the reason why I say this is because I've used an app called Anchor. And in this app, I can do literally everything when it comes to podcasting. I can upload audio, I can have guests on my podcast, I can add intros, outros, ads. Through Anchor, you can actually publish to Apple Podcast, to Spotify, to all the main podcasting services. So Anchor has just made it way easy for me to create a podcast. And honestly, if I didn't have Anchor at the beginning, I probably wouldn't have started a podcast. But really, all I've ever used is just my phone and maybe a small tiny microphone that I can connect to my phone. Outside of that, I haven't used anything else. And to me, it has been a great experience. And at the end of the day, if you're providing enough value to people, it might not matter as much if the quality of the audio is not as great as you would like it to be. So point number 4, I want you to establish a schedule. My biggest mistake in the last 2 years is that I didn't set up a schedule for my podcast. So what would happen is whenever I felt motivation, whenever I felt inspired, I would record a podcast. But that could be, every other night I could feel inspired, or every other week or every other month I could feel inspired. And because of this, my consistency wasn't there. And because of that, my views and my listens went down. And so make sure that you guys set up a time every single week to really focus on your podcast. Okay, so point number 5, and I don't know if you're gonna like this point, but I recommend that you don't do this with friends. And the reason why I say this is because in the past, I've had a few people talk to me and ask me questions about podcasting, how to get started, how to do this and that. And every time they talk about why they want to start a podcast, it goes something along the lines of, yeah, I want to start a podcast because my friend and I, we want to talk about this and beer. We want to talk about girls. We want to talk about sports. We want to talk about cooking recipes, whatever it may be. Whenever you start with a friend, podcasting is essentially going to be like a marriage where you both have to be 100% committed to making it work. And what I've noticed is that most times this couple is going to be committed for a month, and after a month something's gonna come up, and for some reason that person won't be able to record that Saturday, right? And then the next week the other person won't be able to commit and record that Saturday. So you go months and weeks and days without recording, and essentially you just kind of push off the podcast. You forget why you even started in the first place. So I recommend that you guys don't start with your friends. Do it for yourself, by yourself, and if you'd like, you can have guests on your own podcast. But I would say 9 out of 10 times, you're most likely not going to do it because your friends are going to find excuses not to do something, and even if you care more about it, you're going to stop because you can't go forward without them. So be very picky with your friends and make sure that if you're doing it with your friends or your family or whoever it may be, they're truly, truly committed. Okay, so then point 6 and 7 is to make, imagine you have a little baby, right? And the podcast is your baby. So now what you need to do is put on some clothes on this baby and give it a name. And so the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna find a name for your podcast. I would simply recommend that you guys find something that's catchy, something that's easy to find, and something that somehow relates to what your podcast is going to talk about. And so for example, my name, or the name of my podcast, is Seb Talks, and it was pretty easy. It was Sebastian Talks. I talk about different things. I talk about marketing, business, branding, and this has worked out pretty well. It really ties in with my personal brand. One of the podcasts that I really enjoy is called The Last Podcast on the Left, and they are storytellers that talk about, thrilling horror stories, and they also mix it in with comedy. So what I would recommend is that you find your favorite podcast or just look for any podcasts on applications to see what people are naming their podcast, because it can actually help you out a ton and inspire you if you just look at other people, look at what they're doing, what they're saying. And point number 7 is creating your cover art. You simply need to build a visual image that's going to relate to your podcast. It's going to be easy to connect that image to your voice. And so what I did at the beginning is I just went on canva.com. It is a graphic design tool that is super easy to use. There is a free and paid version, but you can easily go with the free version, create some sort of logo or cover, and go with it, right? If you have some money, you could also invest in things such as freelancer.com, fiverr.com, and the same advice goes for this. Look at podcasts that you like, look at their covers, and see why you like those podcasts. See how or what different aspects of that cover you can incorporate into your own. Number 8, don't wait for it to be perfect. The reason why I say this is because when I first started, I was very critical about what I was doing. I was very self-conscious about my voice, about what I was saying right, what I was saying wrong. And it happens with really everything. It happens when I record videos. It happens when I talk to people out in the streets. But you need to just take action, because if you don't take action and if you wait for the perfect time, it most likely won't come. And if you're looking for a perfect podcast, that actually means that you can't get any better. And if you look at your favorite podcast, you will see that if you compare their first episode to their last episode, you'll see a huge difference. You'll hear it in their voice, you'll see the quality of the audio, all those different things. So just know that everyone starts from zero, but without action, nothing is going to happen. Okay, cool guys, well there you go. There's 8 tips that you need in order to get started with your first podcast. I hope this video was helpful, and as always, I would love to get your feedback. Leave me your comments, your questions. Hopefully I can answer them for you guys. And until next week, I will talk to you guys later. See ya.